The manager forced the waitress to crawl on her knees and pick up food scraps from the floor. A customer watched in silence, his expensive suit out of place in the cheap diner. What she didn't know, he was the most powerful mafia boss in the city, and she had once saved his daughter's life. He was about to return the favor. The fluorescent lights of Danny's diner buzzed like dying insects at 11:47 p.m. Riley Martinez wiped down the last booth, her lower back screaming after a double shift. Her phone sat heavy in her apron pocket, 3 missed calls from her babysitter, Mrs. Chen. Each one probably asking when she'd be home to her 7-year-old son, Tommy. Riley, manager Derek's voice cut through the empty diner. Table 6 needs bussing. Now. She bit back a sigh. Table 6 had been clean for 20 minutes, but Derek enjoyed his little power trips. Riley grabbed her tray and headed over, her worn sneakers squeaking against the checkered linoleum. That's when the door chimed. A man walked in, tall, expensive suit, dark hair touched with silver at the temples. He moved like water, smooth and purposeful, and the 2 men flanking him scanned the diner with eyes that missed nothing. Riley had waitressed long enough to recognize money when she saw it. Real money, the kind that didn't eat at roadside diners at midnight. Kitchen's closing, Derek called out, not bothering to hide his irritation. The man's gaze swept over Derek, then landed on Riley. Something flickered in his dark eyes. Assessment, maybe curiosity. Coffee's fine. Black. Riley nodded, already moving toward the pot. As she poured, her hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, from exhaustion. 16 hours on her feet, and tomorrow she'd do it again because Tommy needed new shoes and the rent was due in 5 days. She balanced the tray carefully, 3 cups for the men who'd taken a corner booth. The cup wobbled as she set it down just slightly, but enough. Hot coffee splashed onto the saucer. Careful, the man in the suit said quietly. Not unkind. I'm sorry, let me. Riley. Derek's voice cracked like a whip. He stormed over, his face blotchy with rage that seemed excessive even for him. He'd been in a foul mood all week, something about corporate breathing down his neck. Are you incompetent? Look at this mess. It's just a spill on the saucer, aisle. Derek grabbed the cup and dumped the remaining coffee onto the floor. The brown liquid spread across the white tiles like spilled blood. Clean it. Now. Riley's face burned. She could feel the suited man watching. I'll get the mop. No, Derek's smile was cruel. You'll clean it properly. On your knees. Like you're worth. The diner went silent. Even the fluorescent buzz seemed to fade. Derek, please. I said on your knees. He kicked the ceramic sugar dispenser from the counter. It shattered, white granules exploding across the coffee puddle. All of it. Pick it up. With your hands. Riley's throat closed. She thought of Tommy, asleep at Mrs. Chen's. She thought of the eviction notice she'd narrowly avoided last month. She thought of the other diners in town that never called her back after she'd asked for applications. She started to kneel. Stop. The word cut through the air like a blade. The suited man stood, and suddenly the diner felt smaller. He didn't raise his voice, didn't move aggressively, but Derek stepped back anyway. Excuse me? Derek's bravado was paper-thin. You heard me. The man walked closer, each step deliberate. The lady is not cleaning anything off the floor. This is my diner, and she's my employee. Your diner? The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. Interesting. I was under the impression this was a public establishment, which means I'm a customer. And I'm finding the management. Unacceptable. Derek's face went from red to white. Look, buddy, I don't know who you think you are. Marco Valeni, he said it casually, like mentioning the weather. The name hung in the air. Riley saw Derek's Adam's apple bob as he swallowed hard. Even she'd heard whispers. The Valeni family controlled half the city's businesses, and not all of them were legal. Mr. Valeni, I was just... Derek stammered. You are just humiliating an employee who's clearly exhausted from working herself to the bone in your establishment. Marco's voice remained conversational, which somehow made it more terrifying. Tell me, does corporate know you treat your staff like animals? Or is this a personal touch you add? She's clumsy, she's human. She spilled a tablespoon of coffee. Marco glanced at Riley, and his expression softened for just a moment. Go home. Your shift is over. She can't leave until I say. Her shift is over, Marco repeated, and this time there was steel beneath the silk. Unless you'd like to continue this conversation in a more private setting. Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Finally, he managed, fine. Whatever. Get out, Riley. Riley didn't need to be told twice. She fumbled with her apron strings, her hands shaking for entirely different reasons now. As she rushed past the counter, Derek grabbed her arm. You're suspended. Pending review. Don't expect a paycheck. Her stomach dropped, but she jerked her arm free and ran for the door. The night air hit her face, cool and sharp. She made it to the edge of the parking lot before the tears came. Hot, angry, terrified tears. What had she done? She'd just lost her job. How would she pay rent? How would she feed Tommy? Miss. She spun around. Marco Valeni stood 10 feet away, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable in the sodium lights. Thank you, she managed, wiping her face. But you shouldn't have. I needed that job. You needed that abuse. I needed the money. The words came out broken. Marco studied her in the dim light, and then his gaze caught on her left wrist. She saw the exact moment recognition hit. His eyes widened fractionally. His posture shifted. Your wrist, he said slowly. That scar. How did you get it? Riley touched the raised white line self-consciously.
Car accident.
3 years ago.
Why?
Marco stepped closer, and she saw something she didn't expect in his eyes. Wonder, disbelief, and something that looked almost like pain. You pulled a little girl from a burning car. It wasn't a question. Riley's breath caught. She remembered that day. The intersection, the SUV T-boned by a truck, the flames already licking at the doors, and a child screaming in the back seat. She'd cut her wrist on the broken window getting the girl out. That was your daughter, she whispered.
Marco nodded slowly.
I've been looking for you for 3 years. To thank you. To repay you. His jaw tightened. And I find you here, being treated like this. Riley didn't know what to say. The night suddenly felt surreal, like she'd stepped sideways into someone else's life. What's your full name? Marco asked quietly. Riley Martinez. Riley Martinez, he repeated it like a promise. You saved my daughter's life. And now I'm going to save yours. I don't need. Yes, he said firmly. You do. And whether you know it or not, that manager just made the worst mistake of his life. The way he said it sent ice down Riley's spine. Not fear of him, but fear for what was about to happen. Marco Valeni had just declared war on Danny's diner. And Riley suspected the diner had no idea what was coming. Marco Valeni didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study, a glass of scotch untouched on the mahogany desk, staring at the photograph he'd kept in his wallet for 3 years. His daughter Sophia, age 6, grinning gap-toothed at her birthday party 2 weeks after the accident that should have killed her. The mystery woman who'd pulled her from the flames had vanished before paramedics arrived. No name, no contact information. Only security footage from a nearby traffic camera showing a blur of a figure with dark hair running toward the burning vehicle while everyone else ran away. And now, Riley Martinez, the woman who'd saved his daughter, was crawling on diner floors to survive. His phone buzzed. Talk to me, Luca. His second-in-command's voice crackled through. Danny's Diner is owned by East Side Restaurant Group, chain of 47 locations across 3 states. CEO is Warren Prescott, real estate mogul, clean on paper, but my sources say he's got gambling debts up to his eyeballs. Uses the restaurants to wash money for some overseas operations. Marco's fingers drummed the desk. The manager? Derek Hoskins. Been with the company 8 years. 5 complaints filed against him for workplace harassment. All buried. Corporate keeps him because he runs a tight ship, cuts corners, keeps labor costs low. Luca paused. He's got a sealed juvie record. Assault charges. Find out what's in it. Already on it. Boss, what's the play here? Marco thought of Riley's trembling hands, the resignation in her eyes when she started to kneel. We're going to dismantle this piece by piece. Start with health and safety. I want every violation documented. Contact our friends at the labor board. And Luca? Put a protection detail on Riley Martinez. 2 men, rotating shifts. Discreet. She in danger? She will be when Derek realizes I'm not going away. Marco ended the call and pulled up the diner's business records on his laptop. The numbers didn't lie. East Side Restaurant Group was bleeding money, propped up by cash injections that appeared legitimate but followed suspicious patterns. Shell companies, offshore accounts, the fingerprints of desperation. Warren Prescott was in deeper trouble than Marco initially thought. His office door opened. Sophia appeared in pajamas, her dark curls wild from sleep.
Papa?
It's really late. Marco's expression softened instantly. Bad dream, Principessa?
No.
I heard you talking. She climbed into his lap, fitting perfectly against his chest like she had since she was born. You sound angry. He kissed the top of her head. I found her, Sophia. The woman who saved you. Sophia pulled back, eyes wide. Really? The angel lady? She's not an angel. She's a waitress. A mother, like your mama was his late wife. Elena's face flickered through his mind. Gone 4 years now to cancer, but still the ache remained. And she's in trouble. Then you have to help her, Papa. Like she helped me. I intend to, Marco's jaw set. But it's complicated. Helping people isn't complicated.
You taught me that.
From the mouths of children. Marco hugged his daughter closer. She was right, of course. The Valeni family operated in gray areas, protection rackets, underground gambling, strategic investments in businesses that needed their particular brand of insurance. But they had rules. You protected women and children. You honored debts. And you never, ever forgot someone who saved your family. Derek Hoskins had humiliated Riley in front of him. That made it personal and business. His phone buzzed again, a text from Luca with an attachment. Marco opened it, his expression darkening as he read. Derek's sealed juvie record. Aggravated assault against a girlfriend. Charges dropped when the victim mysteriously recanted. A pattern of violence against women, carefully hidden behind legal loopholes and family money.
Papa?
You're squeezing too tight. Marco loosened his grip, forcing his breathing to steady.
Sorry, Tesoro.
Go back to bed. School tomorrow. After Sophia left, Marco made 3 more calls. First, his lawyer. They'd need documentation for everything. Second, to a private investigator who specialized in employment law violations. Third, to someone who owed him a favor at the health department. By dawn, the machinery was in motion. Marco arrived at the diner at 6 a.m., just as Derek was opening. The manager's face went pale when he saw the black Mercedes pull into the parking lot. Mr. Valenti, look about last night. Save it, Marco stepped inside, his eyes cataloging everything. Grease buildup on the ventilation hoods. Expired inspection certificate. Suspicious stains on the walls. I'm here to inform you that this establishment is under review. Review? By who? Multiple agencies. Health Department, Labor Board, Fire Marshal. Marco smiled coldly. They'll be here by 9. I suggest you prepare your records. Derek's face went from pale to green. You can't do this. Warren will. Warren Prescott is about to have much bigger problems than one diner. Marco turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Derek? Riley Martinez's final paycheck will be delivered to her today. With a severance bonus. Consider it a courtesy before things get truly unpleasant. This is harassment. I'll sue. Marco looked back over his shoulder. Please do. I'd enjoy that discovery process immensely. As he walked to his car, Marco's phone rang. Unknown number. Valenti. Mr. Valenti. The voice was smooth, educated, dangerous. Warren Prescott. I understand you're taking an unusual interest in one of my establishments. Your point? My point is that you're overstepping. That diner is mine. The employees are mine. And if you continue this crusade, you'll find I have friends who can make things very uncomfortable for you. Marco's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped to a lethal quiet. Mr. Prescott, I've built an empire on making people uncomfortable. Whatever friends you think you have, I guarantee mine are worse. And unlike you, I don't prey on single mothers trying to survive. He hung up. The war had officially begun. Riley stared at the envelope on her kitchen table like it might explode. Inside was $3,000, her final paycheck plus what the delivery man called severance compensation, more money than she'd seen in 6 months. It felt like blood money. Mama, can we get pancakes? Tommy bounced into the kitchen, his Spider-Man pajamas 2 sizes too small. She needed to buy him new ones. Now she could, but at what cost? Maybe later, baby. Riley forced a smile. Go brush your teeth. As Tommy ran off, her phone buzzed. A text from her coworker Jessica. Don't come back. Derek's losing his mind. Health inspectors everywhere. He's blaming you. Riley's hands went cold. She'd worked at Danny's for 2 years without incident, and now in one night, everything had imploded because a Mafia boss decided to play hero. She thought about Marco Valeni's words. You saved my daughter's life. Now I'm going to save yours. But Riley didn't want saving. She wanted normal. She wanted to work her shifts, pay her bills, and keep Tommy safe from the kind of world men like Marco inhabited. Another text, this time from an unknown number. Mrs. Martinez, this is Detective Chin. We need to discuss the workplace violations at Danny's diner. Can you come to the station? Her stomach twisted. The police? This was spiraling out of control. Tommy appeared in the doorway, toothpaste on his chin. Mama, why do you look scared? I'm not scared, the lie tasted bitter. Just tired. Is it because you lost your job? Mrs. Chin said you might be sad about that. Riley pulled him into a hug, breathing in his shampoo scent. We'll be okay. We always are. But as she held her son, she wondered if that was another lie. Across town, Warren Prescott threw his phone against his office wall. The screen shattered, pieces scattering across the marble floor like his carefully constructed empire. Marco Valeni, he hissed to the man sitting across from him. Do you understand what that means, Derek? Derek Hoskins slouched in the leather chair, his earlier bravado completely evaporated. I didn't know who he was. The guy just walked in. You humiliated an employee in front of one of the most powerful crime bosses on the East Coast. Warren's face was purple. Do you have any idea what he can do to us? It was just some waitress. Some waitress who apparently saved his daughter's life. Warren poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon at 10 in the morning. He's already got health inspectors crawling through the diner. By noon, they'll have enough violations to shut us down. And once they start looking at one location, they'll look at all of them. Derek sat up straighter, fear finally registering. What do we do? Warren drank, thinking. His restaurant chain was barely holding together. The 47 locations generated just enough legitimate revenue to mask the money he was laundering for his overseas partners, Russian investors who didn't appreciate complications. If Marco exposed the operation, Warren wasn't just looking at bankruptcy. He was looking at cement shoes in the Hudson River. We need leverage, Warren said slowly. Something to make Valeni back off. What kind of leverage works on a guy like that? Warren's eyes narrowed. The girl. Riley Martinez. She's what he cares about. If we control her, we control the situation. Derek shifted uncomfortably. Control her how? I have a contact, someone who handles delicate situations. We make it clear to Ms. Martinez that continuing to cooperate with any investigation would be unwise. For her health. For her son's health. You want to threaten a kid? Even Derek looked queasy. I want to neutralize a problem before it destroys everything. Warren pulled out a burner phone. Valeni thinks he's protecting her. But protection only works if she's willing to accept it. We make her refuse his help, and this whole thing goes away. Derek stood, backing toward the door. I don't know, Warren. Threatening some single mom is one thing, but going after Valeni. You're already involved, you idiot. The moment you made her kneel, you put a target on all of us. Warren's smile was razor thin. So you can either help fix this, or I'll let Valeni know that humiliating employees was your idea, not company policy. Your choice. Derek's face went white. He sank back into the chair. What do you need me to do? Find out everything about Riley Martinez. Where she lives, where her son goes to school, who she talks to. Every weakness, every pressure point. Warren dialed a number on the burner. And Derek? If you breathe a word of this to anyone, I'll make sure that sealed juvie record becomes front-page news. Understood? Derek nodded miserably. As Warren waited for his contact to answer, he allowed himself a cold smile. Marco Valeni had made a mistake getting involved. He'd shown his hand, revealed what mattered to him. And Warren Prescott had built a fortune by exploiting weaknesses. The phone clicked. A rough voice answered. Yeah. I have a job for you, Warren said smoothly. A woman and a child. Nothing permanent. Just enough to send a message. What kind of message? Warren looked out his office window at the city sprawling below. The kind that makes people remember their place. He gave them Riley's address. 3 blocks away, in an unmarked sedan, one of Marco's men watched the building entrance and immediately radioed in. Boss, we've got a problem. Prescott just made a call. Looks like a burner. The protection detail around Riley Martinez quietly tightened. The chess pieces were moving into position. And Riley had no idea she was about to become the center of a war. Riley noticed the car on Tuesday morning. A gray sedan, parked across from Tommy's elementary school, windows tinted dark. She told herself she was being paranoid. Told herself that Marco Valeni's world hadn't actually crashed into hers. But when the same car appeared outside her apartment building that afternoon, paranoia turned to ice-cold certainty. She called the number from the envelope, the one written on expensive cardstock that simply said Marco Valeni with 10 digits below it. He answered on the first ring. Riley, there's a car following me, her voice shook. I don't know what to do.
Grey sedan, tinted windows.
Her breath caught. You know about it? That's mine. Protection detail. His voice was calm, steady. You're safe. Safe. Riley's fear twisted into anger. I'm being followed. Tommy asked me why strange men are always nearby. How is that safe? The alternative is being unprotected when Prescott makes his move. What move?
I'm no ubedi.
Her voice cracked. I just want my life back. Silence stretched between them. Then Marco said quietly, meet me. 1 hour. There's a cafe on Maple Street, the corner one with the blue awning. We need to talk. I can't just. Riley, something in his tone made her stop. Please. She hung up and immediately called Mrs. Chen to watch Tommy for another hour. The babysitter agreed, but Riley heard the concern in her voice. Everything okay, dear?
Fine, Riley lid.
Just fine. The cafe was small, worn, the kind of place that survived on regulars and strong coffee. Marco sat in the back corner, positioned where he could see both exits. Old habit. Riley slid into the chair across from him, her purse clutched tight. Up close in daylight, he looked tired. Lines bracketed his mouth that she hadn't noticed at the diner. Thank you for coming, he said. Did I have a choice? Always, he pushed a folder across the table. But you should see this first. Riley opened it. Inside were photographs. Derek entering a building downtown, meeting with a man in an expensive suit. Warren Prescott, according to the caption. More photos showed money changing hands, documents being exchanged. What is this? Proof that Danny's Diner is part of a money laundering operation. Prescott uses the restaurants to clean cash for overseas investors. Derek's involved because Prescott has leverage on him. Buried assault charges, criminal connections. Marco's dark eyes met hers. They're not going to let you walk away quietly, Riley. You're a witness to workplace violations that could trigger a full investigation. They can't afford that. Riley's hands trembled as she closed the folder. So what happens now? I hide? Run. You let me handle this. Like you handle the diner? The words came out sharper than intended. Health inspectors, police detectives calling me, men following my son to school? This is handling it. Marco's jaw tightened. Would you rather I'd walked away? Let Derek continue treating you like garbage? Yes. The word burst out. Other customers glanced over. Riley lowered her voice. Yes, because at least then Tommy would be safe. At least then we'd be invisible. Now we're in the middle of some Mafia war. This isn't a war. Not yet. Marco leaned forward. But Prescott is desperate. Desperate men make stupid choices. Last night, he hired someone to send you a message. My men intercepted them before they reached your apartment. The cafe tilted. Riley gripped the table edge. Someone tried to. Tommy was home. Tommy was sleeping. And nothing happened because you were protected. Marco's voice gentled. I know this is terrifying. I know you didn't ask for any of it. But 3 years ago, you ran into a burning car to save my daughter. You didn't stop to think about the danger. You just acted. That was different.
How?
Because she was a child. Riley's eyes burned. Because it was the right thing to do. And stopping you from being humiliated wasn't. Marco's expression hardened. Riley, I built my life on very clear principles. I protect what's mine. I honor my debts. And I don't forget when someone saves my family. You're under my protection now, whether you want it or not. I'm not yours to protect. Then whose are you? The question hung heavy. Where's Tommy's father? Where's your family? Who do you call when you're scared? The truth hit like a slap. Nobody. She called nobody because there was nobody. Just her and Tommy against the world. Marco saw it register. I'm not trying to own you, Riley. I'm trying to give you a choice you've never had. The choice to not face everything alone. Riley's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Pretty boy you got. Would be a shame if something happened at PS 47. Her blood turned to ice. She showed Marco the screen with shaking hands. His face went cold as winter. That's not my people. When did this come through? Just now, Riley's voice barely worked. PS 47. That's Tommy's school. Marco was already dialing. Luca, get a team to PS 47 immediately. Potential threat against a 7-year-old boy. He stood, pulling Riley up with him. We're going.
Now.
What if they're already? They're not. This is intimidation, but Marco's hand was tight on her arm as they rushed to the door. They want you scared enough to back off. But Riley? She looked at him. After this, the gloves come off. Prescott just threatened a child. That's a line you don't cross. As they ran for his car, Riley realized the war Marco said hadn't started. It just did. Marco's Mercedes tore through traffic like a black bullet. Riley clutched the door handle, her phone pressed to her ear as she called the school for the 3rd time.
Still busy.
They're fine, Marco said, but his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Luca's team is 2 minutes out. You don't know that. Riley's voice cracked. You don't know.
Her phone rang.
The school's number. She answered before the first ring finished. This is Riley Martinez, Tommy's mom. Ms. Martinez, this is Principal Hoffman. I'm calling to inform you we've initiated a precautionary lockdown due to a suspicious individual reported near the playground. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Where's my son? All children are secure in their classrooms. We've contacted the police. I'm 3 minutes away. Riley was already out of the car before it fully stopped at a red light. Marco grabbed her arm, pulling her back in as he accelerated through the intersection. You can't help him if you're dead, he said grimly. 2 more minutes. They were the longest 2 minutes of Riley's life. The school was surrounded by police cars when they arrived. Marco parked illegally and Riley bolted for the entrance, only to be stopped by an officer. Ma'am, the school is in lockdown. My son is inside. Riley Martinez? A plainclothes detective approached, his badge clipped to his belt. Detective Chun. We spoke on the phone about Danny's diner. I don't care about the diner. Where's Tommy? Safe in his classroom. Chen's eyes flicked to Marco. Mr. Valenti. Interesting timing. What happened? Marco's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. A man was seen taking photographs of children during recess. Teacher noticed and called it in. He fled before officers arrived, but we found this on the fence. Chen held up an evidence bag containing a note. Riley's vision swam as she read it. Back off, or next time, I don't just watch. We need to take your statement, Ms. Martinez, Chen continued. And I think it's time we discussed exactly why someone would threaten your son. 20 minutes later, Riley sat in the principal's office with Tommy in her lap. He was confused but unharmed, chattering about the exciting police visit, while her heart tried to restart. Marco stood by the window, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. His men had arrived. She'd counted 6 of them, spread around the school perimeter like well-dressed sentries. Detective, Chen closed his notebook. Ms. Martinez, I'm recommending protective custody. We can place you and your son in a safe house. No, Marco ended his call. She's under my protection. With all due respect, Mr. Valenti, this is a police matter. This is a matter of someone threatening a child to intimidate a witness in a federal money laundering case. Marco's tone could have frozen fire. I've already contacted the FBI. Agent Sarah Reeves will be here within the hour. Until then, Riley and her son stay with me. Chen's jaw worked. You're inserting yourself into an active investigation. I'm protecting someone who saved my daughter's life. If the NYPD has a problem with that, they can take it up with my lawyers. All 12 of them. Riley watched the exchange like a spectator at her own life. I don't get a say in this. Both men turned to her. Marco's expression softened fractionally. Of course you do. But Riley, these people just threatened Tommy. Prescott isn't bluffing anymore. He's escalating. Because of you, she said quietly. This is happening because you decided to be my hero. The words landed like a punch. Marco's face went carefully blank. You're right. This is my fault. Which is why I'm going to fix it.
How?
By starting a war in front of my son's school? By ending it. Marco crouched down so he was eye level with her. I have resources the police don't. Connections, information, leverage. Give me 48 hours. If I can't neutralize Prescott by then, I'll step back and let Detective Chen handle it his way. And if something happens to Tommy in those 48 hours, then Prescott won't live to see 49. Marco said it so matter-of-factly that Riley almost believed him. Maybe she should believe him. But nothing will happen because you'll both be at my estate. 20 acres, gated entrance, security system that would make the Pentagon jealous. Sophia is there. She's been asking about the angel lady who saved her. She'd love to meet you properly. Tommy perked up. Who's Sophia? My daughter.
She's 9.
Loves dinosaurs and detective shows. Marco smiled at Tommy, a real smile that transformed his entire face. I bet she'd like Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. Tommy's eyes went wide. Do you have a big TV? Tommy, Riley started. The biggest, Marco confirmed. And a pool. And a dog named Bruno, who thinks he's a lapdog but weighs 90 pounds. Riley saw what he was doing. Charming her son, making the offer irresistible. It should have made her angry. Instead, she just felt exhausted. 48 hours, she said finally. Then we talk about next steps.
Marco Nadid.
48 hours. Detective Chen sighed. I'll need your location for the record. Of course, Marco pulled out a business card. My lawyer's number. He'll coordinate everything properly. As they left the school, Tommy between them, chattering excitedly about meeting Sophia and the giant dog, Riley caught Marco's eye over her son's head. Thank you, she mouthed. He nodded once, but the tension in his shoulders didn't ease. Because they both knew the same thing. Prescott had just declared open war. And in wars, people got hurt. Riley just prayed Tommy wouldn't be one of them. The estate was nothing like Riley expected. She'd imagined cold marble, dark wood, something out of a gangster movie. Instead, The house was warm, honey-colored stone, large windows spilling afternoon light, and a garden where roses climbed white trellises. Bruno the dog confirmed his existence by nearly bowling Tommy over the moment they entered, his massive tail whipping back and forth with enough force to be a weapon. Bruno, down. A girl appeared at the top of the stairs, dark curls, bright eyes, wearing jeans and a t-shirt that said, "Dinosaurs are my spirit animal." She bounded down and stopped in front of Riley, suddenly shy. "You're her. The angel lady." Riley knelt down.
I'm Lily.
"And you must be Sophia. Papa talks about you all the time." "Well, not all the time, but since he found you at the diner, he's been really focused." Sophia glanced at Marco. "That's his work face. It means someone's in trouble." "Sophia," Marco said warningly, but there's affection in it. Tommy peeked out from behind Riley.
I'm Tommy. I like Spider-Man.
Sophia's face lit up. "I like Spider-Man too. Wanna see my room? I have all the Lego sets." The children were gone before Riley could protest, Bruno thundering after them. Suddenly alone with Marco in the grand foyer, Riley felt the weight of the situation crash back down. This is insane. 24 hours ago, I was serving coffee. Now I'm in a mansion with a mafia boss because someone wants to hurt my son. "Come on," Marco led her through the house to a study lined with books. He poured 2 glasses of water, not alcohol, she noticed, and handed her one. "How are you holding up? How do you think?" Riley sank into a leather chair.
I'm terrified. I'm angry.
Her voice broke. "Tommy asked me if the bad men were going to hurt us. He's 7. He shouldn't know bad men exist." Marco sat across from her, elbows on his knees. When Sophia was 6, she watched her mother die. Cancer. Slow and brutal. "Elena made me promise I'd protect Sophia from everything I could, but some things," he shook his head. "Some things find you anyway. The car accident was one of them. A rival family sending a message by going after my daughter. They failed because you were there." Riley stared at him. "The accident was intentional?" "The truck driver worked for the Kozlov family. They wanted to hurt me, so they targeted the one thing I loved more than my own life." His hands clenched. "I handled it.
Permanently.
But it doesn't change the fact that Sophia lived with nightmares for a year. Sometimes she still wakes up screaming, 'I'm sorry.'" "Don't be. I chose this life." "She didn't." Marco met her eyes. Just like Tommy didn't choose to have a mother brave enough to pull strangers from burning cars. Brave enough to work double shifts to keep a roof over his head. He's scared now, but he's also safe. And he has a mother who fights for him. "I'm not fighting. I'm hiding in your house." "You're regrouping." Marco pulled out his phone and showed her a series of messages. "While we were at the school, my team moved on Prescott's restaurants. Health department shut down 3 more locations. Labor board seized employee records from corporate headquarters. And the FBI is now officially investigating East Side Restaurant Group for money laundering and racketeering." Riley's eyes widened. "In 3 hours?" "I told you, I have resources." Marco's smile was sharp. "Prescott is scrambling. He's got federal agents breathing down his neck, his business is imploding, and his investors are asking uncomfortable questions. Threatening Tommy was his panic move. It was also his last mistake." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I now have justification to do what I wanted to do from the start, dismantle his entire operation without anyone questioning my methods." Marco leaned back. "Tomorrow morning, every media outlet in the city will run a story about systemic abuse at East Side Restaurant Group. Employee testimonies, financial irregularities, connections to organized crime. By noon, Prescott's investors will cut ties. By evening, he'll be bankrupt. And then he's vulnerable. Exposed. And people like Prescott don't survive exposure." Marco's expression was cold. "He'll either run or try something desperate. Either way, I'll be ready." Riley processed this. "You're ruining a man's life. I'm destroying a man who got rich exploiting vulnerable workers and just threatened a 7-year-old boy." Marco's voice hardened. "There's a difference between business and cruelty, Riley. Prescott crossed that line long before I showed up. Footsteps pounded overhead, Tommy and Sophia laughing, playing. Normal kid sounds in an abnormal situation. What happens after 48 hours? Riley asked quietly. When this is over, if it's ever over, what happens to us? Marco was quiet for a long moment. That's your choice. But I meant what I said at the cafe. You don't have to face everything alone anymore. I don't even know what that means. It means I'm offering you a job. Legitimate work at my wife's foundation. We fund literacy programs, women's shelters, children's hospitals. Elena started it before she died. I've kept it running, but it needs someone who actually understands what it's like to need help. He paused. It means a safe apartment in a good neighborhood. It means Tommy goes to a school where nobody threatens him. It means you stop crawling and start standing. Riley's throat tightened.
Why?
Because I pulled your daughter from a car? Because you deserve better than what you've had. And because I can make it happen. Marco stood. Think about it. No pressure. But Riley? Whatever you decide, Prescott won't touch you again. That's not a favor. That's a promise. He left her alone in the study, surrounded by books and possibilities. Through the window, she could see Tommy and Sophia playing in the garden, Bruno bounding between them. Her son was laughing, really laughing for the first time in days. Riley closed her eyes and tried to imagine a life where she didn't wake up terrified every morning, where she could pay bills without choosing between food and electricity, where Tommy had new shoes and she didn't have to apologize for it. It felt impossible. But then again, 24 hours ago, sitting in a Mafia boss's mansion had felt impossible too. Maybe impossible was just another word for not yet. Warren Prescott's office looked like a bomb had gone off. Papers scattered across the floor, his laptop smashed against the wall, 3 empty bourbon bottles lined up on the credenza like soldiers awaiting execution. Say that again, he said into his phone, voice dangerously calm. The voice on the other end trembled. The FBI froze all corporate accounts. They've got warrants for financial records going back 7 years. Mr. Prescott, they know about the offshore transfers. They know everything. Warren hung up and hurled the phone across the room. It shattered against a framed photo of himself shaking hands with the governor, back when he was respectable, legitimate, somebody. That was 18 hours ago. Now he was nothing. His desk phone rang. He almost didn't answer, but the caller ID showed a number he'd been dreading. He picked up. Mr. Prescott, the voice was thick with a Russian accent. I am calling on behalf of our mutual associates. They are concerned about recent developments. I'm handling it. You are handling nothing. FBI is investigating. Our investment is compromised. This is unacceptable. Warren's hand shook as he poured another drink. It's Valenti. He's the one who. We do not care about your excuses. We care about our money. You have 24 hours to resolve this situation. Transfer what remains to the accounts we provided. Then disappear. And if I can't, silence stretched like a noose. Then, we have been very patient with you, Mr. Prescott. Do not test that patience further. The line went dead. Warren sat in the ruins of his empire and did the math. He had maybe 2 million liquid. Everything else was tied up in properties the feds were already moving to seize. The Russians wanted 10 million. He was 8 million short of staying alive. Unless. He pulled out his burner phone, the one number the feds didn't know about yet. Derek Hoskins answered on the 3rd ring, sounding half-drunk. We're done, Derek slurred. I'm not doing anything else. You hear me? I'm out. You're out when I say you're out. Warren's voice cut like glass. I need you to do one more thing.
No.
No way. Valenti's got eyes everywhere. His men are watching my apartment. I can't even take a piss without. The girl. Riley Martinez. Where is she? Silence. Derek, I know you're stupid, but even you can figure out what happens if I go down. That sealed juvie record? That'll be the least of your problems. The Russians will come for everyone connected to this operation. Everyone. They'll start with you and work their way through your entire family. Jesus Christ, Derek's breathing was ragged. I don't know where she is. She disappeared after the school thing. Nobody's seen her. Then find out. You've got until midnight. Warren ended the call and opened his laptop, the backup one the feds didn't know about. He pulled up everything he had on Riley Martinez. Single mother, no family, worked dead-end jobs her whole life. She was nobody. A ghost. But Valenti had made her somebody. Protected her, probably moved her somewhere secure. Which meant she was leverage. If Warren could get to her, get to the kid, he could force Valenti to back off long enough to disappear. Transfer the remaining money, flee the country, start over somewhere without extradition treaties. It was desperate. It was stupid. It was his only play. His office door burst open. 2 men in FBI windbreakers entered, badges out. Warren Prescott, you're under arrest for money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit. I want my lawyer. Warren stood, hands raised, trying to maintain dignity as they cuffed him. I'm not saying anything without my lawyer. As they led him through his office building, past employees who averted their eyes, past security guards who'd been on his payroll for years, Warren's mind raced. He had one phone call, one chance. Not to his lawyer. That was what they'd expect. No, he'd call someone else. Someone who owed him. Someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain. At the precinct, surrounded by fluorescent lights and hostile faces, Warren made his call. It's me, he said quietly when the voice answered. I need you to finish what we started. The Martinez woman and her son. I don't care how. Just make it happen and I'll wire you everything I have left.
$500,000.
But it has to be tonight. Where are they? Valenti's estate. North of the city. Security will be tight, but you've handled worse. A pause. This is a suicide run. Then charge me accordingly. $1 million. That's my final offer. Wire half now. I'll send proof when it's done. Warren closed his eyes. He was ordering a hit on a woman and child. 3 days ago, he was a respected businessman. Now he was this. But survival required sacrifice. Done, he said. He hung up and looked at the FBI agent watching him. I'd like to speak to my lawyer now. What Warren didn't know, couldn't know, was that Marco Valenti's people had been monitoring every phone line connected to Prescott for the past 12 hours. By the time Warren was processed into a holding cell, Marco already knew about the contract. Already knew someone was coming for Riley and Tommy. Already knew exactly what he needed to do. In his study at the estate, Marco listened to the recording one more time, then made a single phone call.
Luca.
It's time. Bring everyone in. Full lockdown protocol. How many are we expecting? Marco's expression was carved from ice. Assume the worst. Prescott just spent his last million on making this happen. Whoever's coming won't stop until they're dead or we are. What about the woman and kid? They stay in the safe room. No arguments. Marco checked his weapon, a Beretta 92 FS, cleaned and loaded. And Luca? When this is over, I want Prescott's deal with the feds to fall apart. He doesn't get to trade information for leniency. Not after this. Consider it done, boss. Marco ended the call and went to find Riley. The final act was about to begin. And this time, there would be no mercy. Riley knew something was wrong the moment Marco entered the living room. His expression was carefully neutral, but his men were moving with purpose, checking windows, speaking in clipped tones into earpieces, transforming the warm family home into a fortress. What's happening? She stood, instinctively moving toward the staircase where Tommy and Sophia were still playing. Prescott made a mistake. Marco's voice was calm, but his eyes were dark. He hired someone to come after you. Tonight. The words didn't register at first. Then they hit like ice water. Here? They're coming here. They won't get through. I have 30 men on the grounds, another 20 on the way. The estate is locked down. He touched her arm gently. But I need you and Tommy in the safe room.
Now.
Safe room. Riley's voice pitched higher. Marco, this is insane. We should call the police. The police can't help with what's coming. He was already guiding her toward the stairs. Sophia knows the drill. She'll show you where it is. Tommy appeared at the top of the landing, his smile fading as he read the room.
Mama?
What's wrong? Riley forced her voice steady. Nothing, baby. We're just going to play a game with Sophia. A hiding game. Sophia emerged behind Tommy, no longer the carefree child from an hour ago. She looked eerily calm, like she'd done this before. It's okay, Tommy. Our hiding spot is really cool. It has snacks and everything. As they climbed the stairs, Marco's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and Riley saw his jaw tighten. How many? She heard him ask Luca. Whatever the answer was, it wasn't good. The safe room was behind a bookshelf in Sophia's bedroom, a reinforced steel chamber with supplies, communications equipment, and walls thick enough to stop bullets. Riley's hands trembled as she settled Tommy on a beanbag chair. Mama, I'm scared, he whispered. I know, baby. But we're safe here. Mr. Valeni is keeping us safe. She looked at Sophia, who was calmly pulling out board games. Right, Sophia? Papa always keeps us safe, Sophia said with absolute certainty. Then, quieter. Even when it's scary. Marco appeared in the doorway, and Riley saw something in his face that made her chest tight. This was goodbye, temporary she hoped, but goodbye nonetheless. The door locks from inside, he said, demonstrating. Don't open it for anyone but me or Luca. You'll know Luca, he sounds like he smokes 2 packs a day and always calls me boss like it's my first name. Sophia giggled despite everything. Luca's nice. He makes funny voices. Marco knelt beside his daughter, cupping her face.
Ti stai amo, principessa.
Be brave for me. Always, Papa. Sophia hugged him fiercely. Then Marco turned to Riley.
I'm sorry.
For all of this. Don't apologize. Just, she swallowed hard. Come back. I will, he looked at Tommy. Take care of your mom, okay? She's pretty special. Tommy nodded seriously, and Riley saw her son trying so hard to be brave. She wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to rewind to a week ago when her biggest problem was spilled coffee. Marco stepped out. The bookshelf slid closed with a pneumatic hiss. Then they were alone in the silence. Riley pulled Tommy close, breathing in his little boy smell, and tried not to think about what was happening outside those steel walls. Marco descended the stairs to find Luca waiting, tactical vest on, rifle in hand. Perimeter breach on the east side. 3 vehicles, at least 8 hostiles. Professional setup, military-grade equipment. Luca's gravelly voice was matter-of-fact. They cut the power to the main gate, but our backups kicked in. They'll be at the house in 5 minutes. Prescott paid well. Marco checked his weapon again. Non-lethal, if possible. I want at least one alive to testify. Boss, they're coming with intent to kill a woman and child. I know what they're coming to do. Marco's voice could have cut diamonds. Which is why if it comes down to them, or us, we end it. But Prescott needs to pay for this.
Properly.
Through the courts, in public, where everyone sees what he is.
Luca grinned darkly.
You're scarier than me sometimes, you know that. I learned from the best. Marco moved to the window. Outside, floodlights illuminated the grounds. His men were in position rooftop, garden, perimeter. A small army defending 2 children and 1 terrified mother. 3 black SUVs rolled up the drive, bold as brass. They're not even trying to be subtle, Luca muttered. They think we're soft. A businessman playing gangster. Marco's smile was cold. Let's educate them. The SUVs stopped 50 yards from the house. Doors opened. Men emerged, 8, just as Luca said, all armed with automatic weapons. A loudspeaker crackled from one vehicle. Send out Riley Martinez and the boy. Nobody else needs to die tonight. Marco stepped onto the front porch, hands visible, posture relaxed. I'm afraid I can't do that. The lead man, military bearing, scarred face, laughed. Valenti. Prescott said you'd be difficult. Last chance. Send them out or we come in. Then come in. Marco's voice carried across the lawn. But understand something first. You're not attacking a restaurant owner or some low-level operator. You're attacking my home. My daughter is in there. And you just threaten children. So there are lines even in our world. You crossed all of them. Marco's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped to lethal quiet. Last chance to walk away. Because if you take one more step toward my house, not one of you leaves this property alive. The scarred man raised his weapon. Big talk for a... He never finished. Luca's shot took him in the shoulder, non-lethal, just as Marco ordered. The man went down screaming. Then chaos erupted. Gunfire exploded from both sides. Marco's men poured covering fire from elevated positions while Marco himself moved with practiced efficiency, taking down 2 attackers before they could advance. Inside the safe room, Riley covered Tommy's ears as the sounds of battle filtered through the walls, muffled but unmistakable. Sophia sat calmly, building a house of cards. "How can you be so calm?" Riley asked, voice shaking. Sophia looked up with eyes too old for 9 years. "Because Papa always wins. Even when Mama died and he couldn't save her, he found ways to win. He'll win this too." The firefight lasted 7 minutes. When it ended, 5 attackers were down with non-fatal wounds, 2 were fleeing into the night, and 1, the scarred leader, was zip-tied on the lawn, bleeding and furious. Marco stood over him. "Who hired you?" "Go to hell." Already there, Marco crouched down. "But you're going somewhere worse. Federal prison, witness to attempted murder of a child. Unless you cooperate. Give me everything on Prescott, and I'll make sure you get a deal." The man spat blood. "He's already arrested. He can't touch me."
No.
"But his Russian investors can." Marco smiled without warmth. "You think they'll be happy you failed? That you led the FBI right to their operation? They're probably looking for you already." Fear flickered across the man's scarred face. "Or," Marco continued, "you testify against Prescott, give us everything, and I personally ensure you go into protective custody where the Russians can't find you. Your choice. But decide fast. My patience ended when you pointed guns at my house." The man's resistance crumbled. "Prescott called me from the precinct. Offered $1 million. Said the woman and kid were at your estate. That's all I know." "Good enough." Marco stood and nodded to Luca. "FBI on their way?" "ETA, 3 minutes." Marco walked back to the house, stepping over shell casings and broken glass. His home, Elena's home, the place where Sophia should feel safe, had become a battlefield. All because he'd stopped a manager from humiliating a waitress.
No.
Because Warren Prescott was a monster who thought hurting innocent people was just business. Marco climbed the stairs and opened the safe room. Riley emerged first, Tommy clutched in her arms, eyes wild. "It's over," Marco said gently. Riley's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, still holding Tommy, and started to cry, great, heaving sobs of relief and terror and rage. Marco sat beside her and simply waited. After a long moment, she looked at him. "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." Riley's voice was fierce despite the tears. "You could have walked away that night at the diner.
Could have let me crawl. Could have forgotten about me.
But you didn't." "I couldn't." Marco met her eyes. "And I never will." Outside, sirens wailed closer. The nightmare was ending. But Riley knew with absolute certainty her old life, the one of crawling and struggling and barely surviving, that was over forever. For better or worse, everything had changed. And somehow, impossibly, she was standing. The FBI descended on the Valeni estate like a swarm. Agent Sarah Reeves, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with salt and pepper hair, surveyed the scene with barely concealed frustration. "Mr. Valeni, we've discussed this before," she said, standing in Marco's bullet-riddled foyer. "You can't just take the law into your own hands." "Self-defense isn't taking the law into my own hands." Marco gestured to the shattered windows. 8 armed men attacked my home with intent to kill a woman and child under my protection. Should I have asked them politely to leave? Reeves' jaw tightened, but she couldn't argue. The evidence was clear. Marco's men had defended the property, used non-lethal force where possible, and captured a witness who was already singing like a canary about Prescott's involvement. Riley sat in the kitchen with Tommy, wrapped in a blanket someone had provided, watching the organized chaos. Detective Chin appeared in the doorway, coffee in hand. "Ms. Martinez, how are you holding up?" "I don't know anymore," Riley's voice was hollow. "Is it really over?" Chin pulled out a chair and sat. "Prescott ordered a hit from inside police custody. That's going to add attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and a dozen other charges to his indictment. Combined with the money laundering and the employment violations?" He shook his head. "He's looking at 30 years minimum, no possibility of parole." "What about the Russians?" "Marco said they were involved. FBI's handling that. Turns out Prescott's been laundering money for a Bratva family out of Brighton Beach. With his cooperation, forced or otherwise, they can roll up the entire operation." Chin sipped his coffee. "You're safe, Ms. Martinez. Prescott's associates want nothing to do with this mess. You're a liability they can't afford." Riley should have felt relief. Instead, she just felt numb. Tommy stirred against her. "Mama, is the bad man going to jail?" "Yes, baby. For a long time." "Good." Tommy's voice was fierce in a way that broke her heart. "He tried to hurt us."
Chun stood.
"We'll need your formal statement tomorrow, but for tonight, get some rest. God knows you've earned it." After he left, Sophia appeared with Bruno trailing behind her. "My papa wants to talk to you." In his study. Riley followed, leaving Tommy with Sophia and a promise to be right back. She found Marco standing by the window, looking out at the grounds where his men were still cleaning up. "I'm shutting down East Side Restaurant Group," he said without preamble. "Not just the diner. All 47 locations." Riley blinked. "Can you do that?" The FBI seizure froze Prescott's assets. With his investors pulling out, the company's bankrupt. "I'm buying it at auction. Pennies on the dollar." Marco turned to face her. "Every employee will be offered severance and job placement assistance. The properties will be sold. And any worker who wants to testify about the conditions they endured will have legal support."
Pro bono.
Why? Because places like that exist everywhere. Exploiting desperate people, grinding them down until they're crawling on floors for minimum wage. His eyes hardened. "I can't fix all of them, but I can fix this one. Make an example. Show other workers they don't have to accept abuse." Riley felt something shift in her chest. "The foundation job you mentioned, is that offer still open?" "Always." "Then I accept." The words came out stronger than she expected. "I want to help. People like me, people who need someone to see them." Marco's expression softened. "Riley Martinez, you're hired. We'll work out the details once things settle, but the job is yours." A commotion in the hallway interrupted them. Luca appeared, phone in hand. "Boss, you need to see this." He turned on the television. Every news channel was running the same story. Restaurant mogul arrested in murder-for-hire plot, footage of Prescott being led out of the precinct in handcuffs, his face haggard and defeated. Interviews with former employees describing years of abuse, wage theft, unsafe conditions. Anonymous source leaked everything to the media, Lucas said with a satisfied grin. Employment records, financial statements, internal emails covering up harassment complaints. It's a feeding frenzy. Riley watched Warren Prescott's empire collapse in real time. A week ago, he'd been untouchable. Now he was ruined, financially, legally, publicly. "You did this," she said quietly to Marco. "All of this because of me." "No," Marco met her eyes. "I did this because it was right. You just reminded me why it mattered." The next morning, Riley woke in a guest room nicer than any place she'd ever lived. Tommy was still asleep beside her, peaceful for the first time in days. She slipped out quietly and found her way to the kitchen. Marco was already there, making coffee. He looked exhausted, lines deeper around his eyes, stubble on his jaw. But he smiled when he saw her. "Couldn't sleep?" "Too much adrenaline." Riley accepted the coffee he offered. "What happens now?"
"Now?"
"You and Tommy stay here until we find you a proper apartment." "Sophia's already planning a playdate schedule." Marco's smile turned wry. My daughter has decided Tommy is her new best friend. I don't think you have a choice in the matter. I don't mind, Riley surprised herself by meaning it. She's a good kid. You've raised her well. I've tried. After Elena died, Marco trailed off, then started again. I told myself I was protecting Sophia by keeping her away from my business. But protection and isolation aren't the same thing.
You taught me that. How?
You didn't isolate Tommy from the world. You faced it head-on, worked yourself to exhaustion, took every humiliation just to give him a chance at normal. That's not weakness. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Riley's throat tightened. I was crawling on a diner floor when you met me. And now you're standing in my kitchen, hired at a foundation that helps thousands, with your son safe upstairs and your abuser in prison. Marco's voice was gentle. You didn't need saving, Riley. You just needed someone to see how strong you already were. Footsteps thundered overhead. Tommy and Sophia, awake and already causing chaos. Bruno's bark echoed through the house. Riley laughed, and it felt like the first real laugh in years. I should probably let them play, Marco said. They're safe. You're safe. For the first time in a long time, you can just breathe. So Riley did. She breathed and drank her coffee and watched the morning sun stream through windows that weren't broken anymore. And she realized Marco was right. She was standing. Finally, truly standing. And she never planned to crawl again. 3 weeks later, Riley stood in the doorway of her new apartment, keys heavy in her hand. It wasn't the cramped, roach-infested place she'd shared with Tommy before. This was in a safe neighborhood with good schools, parks nearby, and windows that actually locked. Mama, look. Tommy ran from room to room, his voice echoing off the empty walls. I have my own bedroom. With a closet. A big one. Sophia trailed behind him, Bruno lumbering after both children. And we only live 10 minutes away, so we can have sleepovers all the time. Marco appeared beside Riley, a moving box in his arms. Where do you want this? You don't have to help move boxes, Riley protested. You've already done so much. Riley, he set the box down gently. Stop. Let people help you. It doesn't make you weak. She was still learning that lesson. 3 weeks of living at the estate, watching Marco's world operate, seeing how family and loyalty worked when you had resources. It had shattered every assumption she'd built over years of survival. The foundation job started Monday. Real salary, benefits, childcare assistance. Marco's team had already set up her office, introduced her to staff, walked her through programs that help single parents, domestic violence survivors, and workers escaping exploitation. It's like you built this job specifically for me, she'd said during her first walkthrough. Marco had looked uncomfortable. Elena designed most of these programs. I just kept them running. But she would have liked you. You remind me of her, actually.
How?
She never stopped fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. Now, standing in her new apartment, Riley felt the weight of the past 3 weeks settling into something that felt almost like hope. Detective Chun had called yesterday with updates. Prescott's plea deal had fallen through when the Russians turned state's evidence first, cutting him out entirely. He'd be in prison until he was 80. Derek Hoskins took a deal, testimony against Prescott in exchange for 5 years, eligible for parole in 3. The diner where she'd crawled was permanently closed, a property seized sign in the window. 46 other locations were being sold off piece by piece, with Marco ensuring every displaced worker received job placement assistance and back wages they were owed. The media called it the Valeni redemption, a known crime figure using his resources for legitimate good. Riley knew the truth was more complicated. Marco hadn't suddenly become a saint. He still ran operations on the edges of legality, still commanded loyalty through a mixture of respect and fear. But he'd also saved her life, given her a future, and asked nothing in return except that she pay it forward. Earth to Riley, Marco waved a hand in front of her face. You okay?
Yeah.
Just processing, she managed to smile. Thank you for all of this? You're going to keep thanking me, aren't you? Probably. He sighed dramatically.
Fine.
But only if I can keep reminding you that you saved my daughter's life first. We're even. We're not even close to even. Then we'll spend years arguing about it. Marco's dark eyes held warmth. I can live with that. Something shifted between them, an acknowledgement of something neither was quite ready to name. Riley looked away first, her cheeks warming. Luca appeared in the doorway, carrying a massive flat-screen TV. Where do you want this, Ms. Martinez? You bought me a TV? Sophia insisted. Marco said quickly. Something about Tommy needing to watch Spider-Man properly. Riley laughed. Living room, please. And Luca? Thank you. The gravel-voiced man actually smiled. You're good people, Ms. Martinez. Boss makes smart choices. Usually. Usually? Marco raised an eyebrow. That time in '09 with a shipment from? We don't talk about '09. Riley watched them bicker like brothers and felt something ease in her chest. This strange, complicated family Marco had built. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And somehow, she and Tommy were becoming part of it. By evening, the apartment was furnished enough to be livable. Marco's people had done most of the heavy lifting, despite Riley's protests. Sophia and Tommy had claimed the living room, building a blanket fort with Bruno squished inside. Marco found Riley on the small balcony, watching the sunset paint the city orange and gold. Penny for your thoughts. Just thinking about how different everything is, Riley leaned against the railing. A month ago, I was terrified of losing a job I hated. Now I have a job I might actually love, an apartment that doesn't have mold, and my son isn't asking why I cry in the bathroom. You cried in the bathroom? Every night, the admission came easier than expected, where Tommy couldn't see.
I was so tired, Marco.
So tired of fighting alone. He moved closer, not quite touching but near enough that she could feel his warmth. You're not alone anymore. I know, Riley turned to look at him. That's the scary part. I keep waiting for it to fall apart. For you to realize I'm just some waitress who got lucky. Stop, Marco's voice was firm but gentle. You're not lucky. You're strong and brave, and you've survived things that would have broken most people. The only thing I realized is that I should have found you 3 years ago.
Marco.
I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I know this is complicated. I know I'm complicated. But Riley, whatever this is between us, friendship, gratitude, something more, it's real. And I'm not going anywhere. Riley's heart hammered. She'd been alone so long. She'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone truly see her. Not as a problem to fix or a charity case, but as an equal. Someone worth knowing. I'm not going anywhere either, she said softly. His smile was the real one, the one she'd only seen a handful of times, when he looked at Sophia or talked about his late wife. Good. Because Sophia already picked out matching Halloween costumes for all 4 of us. Apparently, we're doing a group theme. All 4. You, me, Sophia, and Tommy. She's very insistent. Riley laughed, and it felt like freedom. What's the theme? The Incredibles. You're Elastigirl. I'm Mr. Incredible. Of course you are. Sophia is Violet, and Tommy is Dash. Marco's expression turned sheepish. She's already ordered the costumes. That's 2 months away. My daughter plans ahead. They stood together on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker to life, and Riley felt something settle deep in her bones.
Peace. Hope.
The possibility of a future that didn't involve simply surviving. Inside, Tommy shrieked with laughter at something Sophia said.
Bruno Barqued.
Normal, beautiful chaos. Thank you, Riley said again, because some things deserved repeating. Marco didn't argue this time. He just took her hand and squeezed gently. And Riley squeezed back. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. She'd be navigating a new job, a new life, and whatever this thing with Marco was becoming. But for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid. She was standing. And she was ready. Riley's office at the Elena Valeni Foundation overlooked a small park where children played on swings their mothers had once been too poor to afford. The irony wasn't lost on her. Ms. Martinez? Her assistant, Jade, poked her head through the door. The Women's Shelter quarterly report is ready for review. And Marco, Mr. Valeni called. Something about Sophia's piano recital tonight. Riley glanced at her calendar. How had she forgotten? Tell him I'll be there. 7 o'clock, right? 6:30, he said, and I quote, "Tell Riley if she's late, Sophia will never forgive her." Riley laughed. 6 months ago, she'd been crawling on a diner floor. Now she was attending piano recitals and reviewing shelter reports, and somehow, impossibly, it felt normal. The foundation work had consumed her in the best way. She'd helped place 43 former East Side Restaurant Group employees in new jobs, secured housing for 12 families facing eviction, connected domestic violence survivors with legal aid and counseling. Every day reminded her why she'd survived, to help others do the same. Her phone buzzed. Tommy's school. "Ms. Martinez, this is Principal Hoffman." Nothing serious, but Tommy got into an altercation during recess. Riley's stomach dropped. Is he hurt? No, but he punched another student who was bullying a smaller child. The other boy has a bloody nose. Riley closed her eyes. Her sweet, gentle Tommy had hit someone. I'll be right there. 20 minutes later, she sat in the principal's office with her son, who looked simultaneously defiant and terrified. Tommy, we don't hit people, Riley said carefully. But he was being mean. He pushed Marcus down and called him stupid. Tommy's eyes filled with tears. You said we stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Riley's heart cracked. He'd been listening, watching her transform from someone who took abuse to someone who fought it. And now he was applying those lessons in second grade. Principal Hoffman cleared her throat. Tommy will need to serve detention tomorrow, and he'll need to apologize to Brandon. But Ms. Martinez, for what it's worth, 3 other students confirmed Brandon has been bullying Marcus for weeks. We'll be addressing that separately. In the car, Tommy was silent until they pulled into their apartment complex. Are you mad at me? Riley turned off the engine. I'm proud you wanted to protect Marcus. But Tommy, there are better ways than hitting. You could have told a teacher. You could have stood between them. Violence should be the last option, not the first. But Mr. Marco uses violence. Riley froze. What? Sophia told me her papa fights bad people sometimes. To keep everyone safe, Tommy's voice was small. I was keeping Marcus safe. This was the conversation Riley had been dreading. How to explain that Marco's world operated under different rules. Rules she didn't fully understand herself. Mr. Marco is an adult who deals with very dangerous situations. You're 7. Your job is to be a kid, not a protector. She cupped Tommy's face. I love that you have a good heart, but I need you safe more than I need you brave. Understand? Tommy nodded, then hugged her fiercely. I'm sorry, Mama. I know, baby. That evening at Sophia's recital, Riley slipped into the seat Marco had saved beside him. He looked unfairly good in a dark suit, his attention focused on the stage where Sophia sat at the piano, hands poised over keys. Tommy okay? Marco asked quietly. Jade mentioned the school called. He punched a bully. Riley kept her voice low. Apparently, he's learning too much from a certain someone about protecting people. Marco's jaw tightened. I'll talk to him. No, I already did. But Marco, she turned to face him. He idolizes you. Which is wonderful and terrifying because your world and his world shouldn't overlap. You think I don't know that? Marco's voice was rough. I've been trying to keep my business away from him from you. I know. And I appreciate it. But he hears things. Sophia mentions things. And he's 7, trying to figure out what being strong means. Riley softened her tone. Just be careful what example you set. Please. Before Marco could respond, Sophia began playing Chopin, technically perfect but emotionally rich in a way that surprised Riley. The room fell silent except for the piano's voice. Marco's hand found Riley's in the darkness between their seats. She didn't pull away. After the recital, Sophia beamed as they congratulated her. Tommy presented her with a drawing he'd made, Sophia at a piano with music notes floating around like magic. "This is beautiful." Sophia hugged him. "I'm keeping it forever." They went for ice cream after, the four of them squeezed into a booth at a local shop. Sophia and Tommy argued about which superhero would win in a fight. Bruno waited outside, tied to a bench, probably plotting revenge for being excluded. "This is nice," Riley said softly. Marco looked at her. Yeah, she meant it. This strange, blended family situation they'd stumbled into, it worked. It shouldn't, but it did. "Riley, I've been meaning to ask." Marco started, then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression shifted. "I need to take this." He stepped outside. Through the window, Riley watched his posture change, shoulders back, face hardening. Business. The other side of Marco Valenti, the one she tried not to think about. He returned 5 minutes later, carefully neutral.
Saw the
"Work emergency. Everything okay?" "Will be," he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Sophia, finish up. We need to get home." The drive back was quieter. Marco dropped Riley and Tommy at their apartment, his goodbye distracted. "Is Mr. Marco mad at us?" Tommy asked as they walked upstairs. "No, baby. He's just busy." But Riley wondered. 6 months of this careful dance, getting closer but never quite crossing certain lines. She worked for his foundation, attended his family events, held his hand in dark auditoriums. But she still didn't know everything he did, all the shadows he walked through. Maybe that was for the best. Or maybe it was a time bomb waiting to explode. Inside, she tucked Tommy into bed and sat at her kitchen table with tea, staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed. "Marco, sorry about tonight. Tomorrow better." Riley always. "Everything really okay?" "Marco, just business. Nothing for you to worry about." But Riley did worry, because she was falling for a man whose business meant things she couldn't fix with job placements and shelter referrals. She was falling for Marco Valenti. And she had no idea what to do about it. 1 year after the diner incident, Riley stood in Danny's old location, which was now something entirely different. The flickering fluorescent lights were gone, replaced by warm Edison bulbs. The worn booths had been torn out, replaced by community tables and a small stage. The checkered linoleum was now polished wood. The sign outside read, "Elena's Place, Community Center and Cafe." "What do you think?" Marco stood beside her, hands in his pockets, looking almost nervous. Riley turned slowly, taking it all in. "You rebuilt it. We rebuilt it. This was your idea, a place where people can get job training, ESL classes, free meals if they need them. A cafe that pays living wages and treats workers like humans." Marco gestured to the kitchen. "Profitable enough to sustain itself, but focused on impact over profit. The diner where I crawled is now a place that helps people stand up." Riley's throat tightened. "Marco. Elena would have loved this. And you made it possible." He moved closer. "The board wants you to run it. Director position. Full control over programming. You'd still oversee foundation work, but this would be your project." Riley looked at him, really looked. The past year had changed them both. Marco had gradually stepped back from the darker parts of his business, focusing on legitimate enterprises. Not completely clean, probably never would be, but cleaner. Safer. And Riley had transformed from a woman who flinched at raised voices to someone who testified before city council about worker protections, who negotiated with lawyers and politicians, who'd found her voice and refused to lower it. "I'll do it on one condition," she said. "Name it. You tell me the truth. About everything. About what happened that night you left Sophia's recital early. About the business emergencies that make you disappear for days. About what you're still hiding from me." Marco's expression shuddered. "Riley, I'm not naive. I know you're not just running legal businesses. But if we're going to keep doing this," she gestured between them, "whatever this is, I need honesty. I need to know what I'm bringing Tommy into." The silence stretched. Through the window, Riley could see Sophia and Tommy playing in the small park across the street, Bruno sprawled in the grass. Normal kids having a normal afternoon, unaware of the adult complications swirling around them. Finally, Marco spoke. 6 months ago, a rival family tried to muscle in on territory I'd already vacated. I had a choice: fight back and drag everyone into a war, or negotiate. I negotiated. It cost me money, pride, and several business partnerships, but it kept everyone safe. And the night of the recital, an associate from the old days showed up, wanted me to get involved in something that would have been very profitable and very illegal. I had to make it clear I was out. That conversation required certain assurances. Violence. Threatened. Not enacted. Marco met her eyes. I'm trying to go legitimate, Riley. For Sophia. For he trailed off. For you. The words came out raw. Because I want this, us, to be something real. Not complicated by the weight of everything I've done. But I can't erase my past. I can only choose my future. Riley's heart hammered. And what future do you choose? One where I take you to dinner, without bodyguards. Where Tommy and Sophia grow up, without looking over their shoulders. Where I run businesses that don't require lawyers on speed dial for the wrong reasons. Marco, step closer. A future where I can tell you I'm falling in love with you, without wondering if that puts you in danger. The world tilted. You're in love with me? Ridiculously. Inconveniently. Completely. His smile was self-deprecating. I've been since you looked at me in that diner parking lot with tears on your face and still said, thank you, like you were grateful for basic human decency. Riley laughed, the sound half-sob. I'm falling for you too. Even though you're infuriating and overprotective and you bought my son a ridiculously expensive bike for his birthday. It had training wheels. It had a GPS tracker. Safety feature. Marco, Riley took his hands. I need you to promise me something. No more secrets. If something threatens our family, yes, our family, I need to know. I can't protect what I don't understand. Our family, Marco repeated softly, like testing the words. Then stronger. Our family. I promise. He kissed her then, gentle and sure, and Riley felt the final piece of her broken life click into place. This wasn't a fairy tale. Marco wasn't Prince Charming, and she wasn't a damsel in distress. They were two damaged people who'd found something worth fighting for in each other. Ms. Martinez. Mr. Valenti. Jade burst through the door, breathless. Turn on the news. You need to see this. Marco pulled out his phone, finding a local news stream. The reporter stood outside a federal courthouse. Unprecedented cooperation with authorities has led to the dismantling of 3 major criminal organizations operating in the city. Sources say information provided by reformed businessman Marco Valenti was instrumental in bringing down operations responsible for trafficking, extortion, and money laundering. Riley stared at the screen, then at Marco. You testified against them. Your old associates. I made a deal. Full immunity in exchange for everything I knew about operations I was never directly involved in but had knowledge of. Marco's jaw was set. It's done. I'm officially out. Clean slate, supervised by federal oversight for 5 years, but clean. You did this for us? I did it for me. Because I was tired of being that person. But yes, also for you. For Sophia. For Tommy, he pulled her close. For the family we're building. Outside, Sophia's laugh rang out as Tommy chased her around the park, Bruno barking joyfully. 2 kids who'd been through too much, now just being kids. Riley buried her face in Marco's chest and let herself cry, not from fear or exhaustion, but from relief, from hope, from the overwhelming feeling of finally being safe enough to fall apart and know someone would catch her. We're really doing this, she whispered. Building a life together? We already are. Marco kissed the top of her head. You saved my daughter. I saved you. Now, we save each other. Every day. 3 months later, Elena's place opened to a crowd of former East Side Restaurant Group employees, city officials, and community members. Riley gave a speech about dignity and second chances, her voice steady and strong. Tommy and Sophia cut the ribbon together, grinning for cameras. Marco stood back, watching his family, blood and chosen, celebrate new beginnings. And in the window where Danny's diner once hung, the new sign gleamed in the sunlight. Elena's place, where everyone stands tall. No more crawling. No more fear. Just people, standing together, building something better from the ashes of what was broken. Riley caught Marco's eye across the crowd and smiled. He smiled back. And in that moment, everything they'd survived, the humiliation, the violence, the fear, the uncertainty, became worth it. Because they were standing together. Finally home. The end.